What's up everyone, it's Sinistry, and today I am here to talk to you about Dead by Daylight. Now, Dead by Daylight recently had its major update, but personally, I don't really want to talk about the update. I don't think I have anything interesting to add to that conversation, but I instead wanted to talk about two issues that I've seen with Dead by Daylight and why I think the game has become less fun over the past few years, at least for me personally. I know some people probably think DBD is the best it's ever been, but I just have had a not super great experience as of recent, and I wanted to provide some potential solutions for behavior to implement if they choose, which I think could not only improve the quality of gameplay for people who already play the game, but could potentially attract new people to the game, as well as keep some of the players who might have played for a while and then just decided to drop off, much like I pretty much did. So without further ado, I want to jump into the two issues with the game. Now, the first issue is not really a behavior issue. It kind of is and it kind of isn't. I'll explain more later, but it's the meta conversations. So everybody has seen the DBD Reddit or YouTube videos or any other platform that mention, the best perk builds or who's the top tier character to play as, like either survivors or killers, doesn't really matter. There are just tons of different videos and pieces of content discussing these topics, and I don't think they're bad inherently. I just think that people are taking the meta way too seriously at this point. And it's not everybody. There are definitely people who are more casual players or who play as, however they want to, play the people they want to. I'm one of those people. But I also have fallen prey to the meta discussions, and I have tried to kind of work my way into the meta system and have the best perk builds and play the game the right way. But I think that that's kind of inherently an issue. And I don't blame people for wanting to play the game with the best possible chance of winning. That's why you're playing a competitive game, to win. But I also think that because people play so seriously, if you are a more casual player, number one, you're probably frustrating the people who just want to win. And number two, as a casual person, you're probably very frustrated if you go up against a killer who's super sweaty, or if you're on a team of people who just are getting frustrated at you, who are leaving you to die on a hook or something because they just think you're a waste. Whatever the case is, it's just super frustrating. And I'm sure the people who want to play super seriously are just very annoyed when they're in a lobby with someone who doesn't want to play seriously. So I think this is kind of contributing to a lot of frustration with people where you're matched up with people who might have different objectives than you when going into a game. If you're playing casually, you're playing to have fun, you're trying out new characters or new builds, maybe you are just starting the game and you don't have even more than one perk slot unlocked, and so you're just frustrated because you're going up against people who are super strong. And it's not a fair fight, and it's also not fair to people who want to play the game one way or the other. You're all going to be lumped in together, and I think that's a really big issue. And I think it's why a lot of people drop off, because they just know that the game is not really set up for you to play the way that you want to play. It's set up for you to play whatever way the majority of the people in the lobby want to play. Okay, so the second issue is the sameness of Dead by Daylight over the past few years. Really, Dead by Daylight has not changed all that much. There have been some different tweaks to it for sure, but really the game is very basic. You're either fixing generators or you're trying to kill people, and I think Killer tends to have more interesting gameplay because you can play with all your different powers depending on which killers you have. You can kind of set things up differently. I don't know, I tend to prefer Killer if I really had to choose which gameplay I liked, but I tend to have more fun matches if I play as Survivor, so that's also kind of frustrating. But realistically, I think the game is just way too simple, and it's way too similar to how it has been for the past several years. And I will get into some different opportunities for how behavior can make the game kind of evolve in a more natural way and give some different depth to the gameplay, as well as just kind of provide some opportunities for people to play however they want. So I'm going to jump into my solutions to these two problems. Okay, so kind of solving the first problem of everybody being lumped together into a single pool of players, I think there really needs to be a casual mode and a ranked mode. And I know people are going to say, we don't have enough players to justify having two different modes because you're gonna wait 30 minutes in a lobby. But realistically, I think this should have been implemented like a few years ago, and Behavior kind of shot themselves in the foot by not doing this. And I would very much like to bet that if they had actually implemented these two different modes, we would actually have a higher player base now. Maybe not higher than ever, maybe people still would have dropped off, but I definitely think that it would have retained some people, or even could pique other people's interests, because if you know there is a dedicated ranked mode, you're not going to be, lumped in with the people who just started the game or people who don't really care about playing the game seriously. You can play and try to win, and you can go up against people, you have all of this extra competitiveness, like you're gonna bring in those people, but you're also not going to intimidate the people who might be willing to try the game, but they don't wanna have to shell out like tons of money to get the best perks. They don't want to have to lose every time because they're just getting used to the game and they have no idea what's going on. You really have to consider the new player experience with games like Dead by Daylight. And personally, I think that Behavior really needs to add these modes as two separate modes, give people the opportunity to just jump into whatever play style they prefer, and it'll take away so much frustration from just being paired up with people who play differently than you. In addition, I would recommend that the two different modes have some different like perks and balances. And what I mean by this isn't like the actual perks that you choose, but I mean like benefits. So I think that the casual play mode, because it is casual and because, you might be messing around in it, or maybe you're playing at a lower level, like you're only playing with one perk because you want to be funny and see if you can get out still. Whatever the case is, I think that casual should give you fewer blood points. Definitely not like none. I think you should get some, but I think that you should get fewer than in ranked mode, because ranked is specifically for people who want to play really hardcore. And I think that it would be much better, much more rewarding to play in the mode of your choice, because if you're playing casual, you're getting the benefit of you're not going to have to deal with people who are just going to instantly hook you after 1 minute of gameplay, but you get fewer blood points. It's fine, but you're having more of a fun time, and you're probably more willing to play more games and therefore grind more for more blood points. Versus if you play on ranked mode, you really are earning those blood points, and I think that's just fair. So personally, I would prefer that Behavior separate out the modes and then just kind of balance them so that it gives people a reward for playing the mode that they most prefer. Also, one more thing to add on to this is I would love to see a casual mode that didn't allow Survivor with friends. And my reasoning for this, I think a lot of people could see, it's just when you play in Swift lobbies, it's just really hard for killers. It can be very frustrating, even if the survivors are not all that good. Sometimes just having like the ability to speak to your friends adds so much more information to the gameplay. It just really gives you a huge leg up. So I think in a casual mode, you could kind of ban that. Like you can't join a lobby with other people that you know, or at least like you can't intentionally do that. Whereas in the ranked mode, you can do that if you want. You can just be matched up in a lobby with whomever if you want. It doesn't really matter. But I think that in ranked, you're going into it knowing there will be a challenge, and so it would be fair to have survivors with friends in a ranked mode. Okay, so next up, I think that Behavior should add interesting special event modes. And what I mean by this is maybe like once a month for a weekend, they add in a mode that just completely changes the gameplay. Maybe not the actual like gameplay itself, like, fixing generators, killing people. You could do that. You could add maybe some different objectives, which could be very fun. But Personally, I think it would be interesting to see some modes where it's like you can only play as one particular killer with a particular build, and you have to try to do well with that. Maybe the survivors can only take a set of like, 4 out of like 8 perks, something like that, just to kind of like add some difficulty to the game, add some like differences in how you can play, and give people a reason to use other perks or other characters. Again, I do think it could be fun to have different objectives, like maybe instead of doing generators, you have to do all the totems and open all the chests. Maybe there are 2 hatches on the map and you have to survive for X amount of time, and if you can survive, the hatches appear, and then you have to just go locate the hatches while still escaping from the killer, but the killer like insta-downs or something. I don't know, it could just be really fun to have these like crazy kind of modes. I know I mentioned something similar in my Splatoon video, but I am very much a fan of game devs like adding in really wacky modes to games because I think it's just fun. There's like no real downside, especially if it's just for like a weekend. Obviously it requires a lot of coding, so I'm not saying that like they should just, completely change the game for like a 2-day event. But I do think they could also like reuse these modes. Like maybe, okay, they do a different objective mode for September, and then they do a specific build mode for October, and then they do a different objective mode for November, and keep going. You could add in other modes as well, but I think it would just be super fun to have some different opportunities within Dead by Daylight, so you're not just having to play the same kind of stale game over and over again. Okay, so I did just call the gameplay stale, and like, it is, but it isn't. It's still fun. I'm not trying to get on Behavior's case way too much, but I will say I think they do need to make the gameplay a little more complex if they want people to continue playing for years down the line. And this doesn't need to be anything too crazy. You could, for example, have traps that the survivors could build, and if they catch the killer in the trap, then they are like stunned, or they have to work their way out of the trap for like 30 seconds, or they have like a mini game that they have to solve. Something like that. I think it could just be really fun to have a different, I guess, like secondary objective, like something that doesn't get you to a win, but something that helps like make the game easier or more fun and intriguing, maybe gives you more blood points, things like that. I think that the game just needs to not be like an M1 clicker, like it's just a mouse clicker. You just hold the mouse, or like you click the space bar or whatever. I don't know, it's just a little bit too simple right now, and I think that they could add some more interesting factors. And for killers, I think something that could be very cool is have a way to like get rid of one of the exit gates. And I think this would have to be very difficult. Like, this is something that you would have to do basically instead of getting survivors. But this could be very good if like you don't want to face camp and you want to play the game fairly. I guess fairly. Face camping is fair, but you want to play the game in a less annoying way, but you don't have like any other survivors to chase after. Okay, then go start working on the secondary objective. And maybe you have to like, I don't know, you have to just hit certain crazy qualifications, and then it like shuts down one of the exit gates, and it makes it much more difficult for survivors to get out at the very end. But if you can manage it before the survivors get all the gens on and get out the exit gate, then like you're basically guaranteed a 4K. I don't know, this is just something I'm spitballing, but it's something that I think could be very fun to implement. And regardless, like, I don't think Behavior needs to take my ideas, but they can definitely come up with their own that are much more fun and very balanced for the game. Okay, and finally, I think that Behavior might need to kind of consolidate the perks. I think there are just way too many. Every survivor and every killer getting multiple perks is just a lot when you have so many different packs, and then you also have like base perks and things like that. It's way too much. So I really think that Behavior needs to consolidate some of them down. Maybe give each survivor and each killer like 1 or 2 individual perks. I don't really know. but I think they just really need to consider how they're continuing to add more and more and more perks to the game, and they're never taking away any, they're always just adding. And it is just fueling this whole meta discussion. It's fueling the whole like, well, why would I ever unlock this perk because it's just a worse version of this other perk that I already have unlocked. Things like that. I just don't get why they can't like add some more complexity to the game and then create perks around those more complex features or something like that. Or just like cut out a third of the perks and just rework the ones that you have to be either a little stronger or a little more balanced. You know, I think it would just work overall. And I mean this for both killers and survivors, though I think for killers it's a little more difficult because depending on like the powers you have, you might need to play with certain perks to really get benefit out of it. But regardless, I think survivors just have way too many perks, and it's a little bit overwhelming. I don't really know which perks they would get rid of. I'm not suggesting any in particular, but I think that behavior needs to not just think, oh, how can we balance these perks out? But they need to really think about like, how are these perks working together? Are these perks working? Do people even use half of these perks? Or like, do they use them for one match and then they're like, I hate this perk, I'm never playing it again? Just kind of look at the statistics. They have the statistics, they can look at them, just get rid of a lot of them. I know it would probably make some people angry, but if you had a complete overhaul, and I mean complete, not like the overhaul they just did, which was really big, but I mean a complete, like you are starting from scratch, you are just picking like your 20 perks that you want to have in the game, and then you're building each of them with a specific purpose in mind. I think it would be so much better than just like, well, this person's a little bit speedy of a person, so we're just gonna give them a speed perk, and then we're gonna give the, like, no, we already have enough perks. We have plenty. We can cut out a lot of them. I know that might be controversial, but truly, I just don't see a point in having so many. So anyway, y'all, those are all of my takes. I do love Dead by Daylight. I'm not making this video to hate on it. I'm not trying to hate on behavior. I'm not hating on the community. I don't have fun as much, and I want to have fun, and I want everybody who plays this game to have fun, and I want behavior to be successful, but I don't know that they will be successful for much longer if they don't make some changes, because really, this game will get stale. It will get stale when it gets replaced by a better game, and I'm not even saying an asymmetrical horror. I just mean another game that really like takes over the whole gaming industry, and Dead by Daylight will just continue to bleed players, and it will continue to just kind of fade into obscurity. I want there to be more packs. I want there to be more like properties in the game. I want all of these different things to just continue to go on for years and years, but really behavior has to do their part, and I just hope that they do consider adding in some different features to make the game more interesting. And as far as players go, you know, I'm not gonna be mad at you if you want to play with the best possible build, but I just want to say, like, remember the game's supposed to be fun. Like, I don't think it's your responsibility to make it fun for everybody. That's everybody's individual responsibility for themselves. But I do think that, you know, just remember, like, it's not always about winning. Sometimes you can try some other perks and see if they do well. And, like, if you find that you're not having a lot of fun and you're playing the game the right way, then, like, maybe it's just because the game is set up to not be as fun as it could be. So keep that in mind. If you have any ideas for how Dead by Daylight could be improved, or what kinds of features could be added, or if you want to talk about anything I've talked about today, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Just be polite. That's all I'm asking. I'm okay if people completely disagree with me. I'm sure there are a lot of people I would disagree with as well, but let's all just have some constructive conversations, and like maybe one day behavior will listen to the community and will make the game super fun. But for now, we'll just deal with what we have and continue to try our best to have fun. So anyway, if you liked the video, definitely make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you soon for another gaming video.